Being a fan of Naruto is kind of confusing for me right now. I love the original story, and while its successor has its fans,
but what the hell, boy?
I've spent the past 6 years pretending that it doesn't exist. When it comes to video games, I think Naruto Storm 4 is one of the greatest anime games of all time, and I've been holding out hope for a sequel for a long time. And then we got this trailer back in February. I'm not gonna lie, I did not like the look of this game when it was first announced. The announcement trailer was just a ton of stuff from previous Storm games stitched together with Indra and Ashura thrown in at the end. But after some more information has come out, it's looking like Connections might have just enough content to justify its existence. I guess we'll find out if that's true at some point later this year. But the announcement of Connections did something other than making the entire Naruto community go, huh. It made me think back to the other unnumbered entries in the Naruto Storm catalogue: Naruto Shippuden, Ultimate Ninja Storm, Generations, and Revolution. With Connections on the horizon, I thought I'd go back and revisit these games to see if they were any good or if they deserve to be treated like 10-10 during the tuning exams. The Ultimate Ninja Storm games are a follow-up to the original Naruto Ultimate Ninja games made by the same developer, CyberConnect 2. You may know them from other anime games, such as Demon Slayer: The Hinokami Chronicles, and a personal favourite of mine, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. The Ultimate Ninja Storm games tell the story of Naruto, with different arcs being divided into 4 numbered games, with the first game covering Part 1, even though it misses out some pretty important story arcs. Storm 2 covers the time between Naruto returning to the Hidden Leaf Village and his fight against Pain. Storm 3 takes place during the build-up to the 4th Great Ninja War, beginning with the 5 Kage Summit and ending with a weird non-canon ending to the war where Obito retreats after fighting Naruto. And Storm 4 covers the awakening of the Ten Tails and ends with the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke, but it also has some DLC which covers the events of the first Boruto movie too. Generations and Revolution were released in between the numbered entries and don't actually cover any brand new canon content. Nobody seems to mention these games anymore, and I wanted to find out why before Connections arrives later this year. One thing I want to say, regardless of the quality of these games, I will always love the amount of enthusiasm the president of CC2 has for these games. Hiroshi Matsurama ran a marathon dressed as Naruto in freezing temperatures to celebrate the worldwide shipment of 10 million Naruto video games, and then he shot a commercial for Revolution while dressed in armor that was DLC for the previous game. No matter what, you have to respect his commitment. Starting with the first game, Naruto Storm Generations was released in 2012, and features all the characters from the previous 2 games. The main selling point of the game is having both the Part 1 and Shippuden characters in the same game, and the opening cutscene really leans heavily into this. The gameplay of Generations is largely similar to the previous Storm games. You can attack with combos and throw shuriken, use ninjutsu, call in support characters, and call on your purple angry dad to hit someone when they're mean to you. The only major addition in Generations is the substitution meter, which tells you how many times you can avoid attacks before the ability is on cooldown. While that doesn't seem like much of an improvement, it adds a little bit more strategy into the game, as you need to try and pressure your opponent into using all of their available substitutions while being mindful of how many you have left. Once they're left open, you're free to hit a child with a bomb that tears them apart on a cellular level. And while the substitution meter is a good addition, Generations also takes something away. There aren't any quick time events in the game. I'm glad they came back during later entries, but not having them here is a bit of a disappointment. The gameplay is standard Ninja Storm combat, and that's a good thing. Each game brings new additions to the combat system, with each iteration of the system being an improvement upon the last. If you try and compare Generations to Storm 4,
coughing baby! Begin!
there's no competition. But rather than directly comparing the combat systems, I think it's better to view Generations as a stepping stone towards building an incredible gameplay experience later down the line. Generations features a number of game modes. The first one I'll look at is the story mode, which is pretty different from the previous 2 games in the series. The story mode is split across several different characters and tells their individual stories that we experience through the main series. All of your favourite characters are here, like Kakashi, Itachi, Jiraiya, Naruto, young Naruto. I get that he's the main character, but does he really need 2 entire story modes? Even Sasuke just has one to himself. Each story mode opens and closes with original animation produced by the same group as the Naruto anime, Studio Pierrot. Fun fact, this is where the scene of Madara reversing time originally came from, and it made people think that this was one of his canon Mangekyo Sharingan abilities. And after the really cool animated cutscenes, we devolve into static anime screenshots and the most generic video game ninja music I've ever heard.
Everyone's gonna be so surprised when they see my new jutsu! They'll finally have to accept me!
It plays before every single fight with the exception of one rhythmically gifted king, and it kind of deflates the story mode for me. I know it's just a small thing, but hearing that same song play before every single story fight got really annoying. It's not like there aren't other songs in the game, they could have swapped the songs out depending on the tone and setting, but no, we just get the same generic ninja song because the devs said so. I think that the way some of the stories are told is kind of neat. Some are told from different perspectives or at different points in the story. For example, Jiraiya tells his own story as he's reminiscing about Naruto before infiltrating the Rain Village, and Itachi's story is revealed to Sasuke after he wakes up following their duel. The story mode really highlighted to me that Generations is what I like to call a filler game. Its main purpose is to fill the gap between other releases in the same series so that the publisher can keep pumping out the games on a regular basis. The story mode doesn't really contribute anything to the story that wasn't already covered in the previous games, and some of the characters the game chooses to focus on are really bizarre inclusions. Why are Zabuza and Haku here? I guess it's because their story arc was missing from the game that covered part 1, but they're only here for one arc. There really isn't that much story to cover here. Their story mode is comprised of 4 fights, and they're all either Zabuza versus Kakashi or Haku versus Naruto and Sasuke. I know that their arc is an important part of the series, but they really don't have enough screen time to justify taking up one of these slots. If anything, I'm kind of surprised they didn't give Shikamaru a story section here covering his experiences in the Chunin exams and his fight with Kakazu and Hidan. While I do have complaints about the story mode setup, all of this is pushed aside when you unlock the final story mode, Killer Bee. Instead of the generic music that pretty much put me into a coma, Bee's fights all start with him announcing who he's going to be fighting in his raps.
Now a 7 swordsman, he downright cocky. His name is Kisame Hoshigaki. Unlimited chakras, the claim of this shark. He grinds down lives like a walk in the park, but we'll see just who's your patriarch.
After each fight, his previous opponent joins him as a backup dancer because he's straight up taken their souls and he owns them now. Moving on from the story, the other mods of Generations are pretty basic. You have free battles where you can fight the computer or friends locally, participate in tournaments, and see how many opponents you can beat with a single health bar in survival mode. Online battles, which obviously don't work anymore. I learned that lesson with Burst Limit. A shop where you can spend the currency you get from battles. You can get ninja tool sets, profile pictures, titles, and substitution logs. This was probably better when the game's online scene was still alive, but at least now my online title is Hogstyle. And finally you have the collection, where you can view all of your items, ultimate jutsu cutscenes, battle replays, and the animated cutscenes from story mode. Quick public service announcement, I love when a game lets you replay the cutscenes from the story. Can we please standardise this across the industry and make this mandatory in all games going forward? In the end, I think Generations adds good things to the combat system and some of the greatest verses the ninja world has ever seen. However, other than that, the game really doesn't have enough content when compared to other games in the series. I feel like the main reason Generations was made is that they wanted a Naruto game roughly every 2 years and needed something to fill the gap between Storm 2 and 3. It's still a fun time, but I really can't recommend playing this over the other games in the series. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Revolution is the 5th game in the series and released in 2014, 2 years before Storm 4. The game features the largest roster of characters at this point in the series, and has some more original animation from Studio Pierrot in the form of short stories overseen by Masashi Kishimoto himself. Before jumping into the game itself, I wanted to talk about the bonus you got for getting Revolution on day 1. With every copy they sent out a DVD of a Naruto OVA called Sunnyside Battle. It follows Itachi on his noble quest to cook Sasuke the perfect breakfast.
妥協はしない。お前には完璧な目玉焼きを食べさせてやる。
It's the most wholesome interaction I've ever seen between these brothers, other than... and it's probably my favourite Naruto one-shot. Check it out if you haven't seen it before. One thing that Storm Revolution did in terms of gameplay was refine the combat system. While making the game, the development team consulted a fighting game specialist to add changes to the battle system to make combat flow better. Some of the changes made to the core system include the introduction of a counter move which cuts your chakra meter, but you can stun your enemy and leave them open if timed right. Another change is the addition of a guard break attack, which you can use to stun your enemy, but if you miss, you leave yourself open to being attacked. On top of this, the team gameplay has been enhanced with the introduction of support types. When you start a team battle, you can choose from 3 support types, these being Awakening, Ultimate Jutsu, and Drive. Awakening lets you enter a pseudo-awakened state at any time by flicking the right analog stick. Your combos do more damage, you're more resistant to stagger, and your jutsu get a power boost. And when your health gets low enough, you're able to enter a true awakened state. Ultimate Jutsu type is my personal favourite, as it lets you use Team Ultimate Jutsu. So you can have Naruto and Sasuke combine their Rasengan and Chidori, let Guy and Kakashi make a giant lightning Hirudora, and have Hashirama and Madara ruin Kakuzu's day, because he's totally on the level of the first Hokage. And finally, Drive type support gives your teammates more ways to help you in combat, like sacrificing themselves to stop you from being nuked by someone's ultimate, and even sealing your opponent's ultimate and awakening altogether. And there's one other gameplay style that I haven't mentioned yet, but I'll save that for the next section. Overall, I think Revolution adds some interesting ideas to the combat system of the series, but it's clear to me that these weren't all welcome additions. It seems like the only things that were retained for the next iteration were the Team Ultimate Jutsus, the ability to take someone out of their awakened state, and teammates saving your ass from ults. As with the other Storm games, Revolution has the expected modes of free battle and online battle, but this time they're joined by the Ninja World Tournament and Ninja Escapades. I'll start with the tournament mode as it's easily the least interesting of the two. The Ninja World Tournament is a weird non-canon storyline where the 5 Kage have gathered every ninja in the world to find out who's the strongest, even though Madara has just stood there in the crowd like he didn't single-handedly violate the 5 Kage as a warm-up.
Fuck out of here and go to the...
And Tobirama's just stood there thinking about all these fucking Uchihas around him. I like to think this is Lee's dream for the Infinite Tsukuyomi, and as such, I chose to play as Lee for this entire mode. For the Ninja World Tournament, you have to assemble a team to take part in the rounds, and every fight is a 4-person free-for-all, where you have to damage your opponents to gather orbs.
Shadow Wizard Buddy Gang, we love casting spells.
You get to walk around the island that the tournament is being held on, and you get to recruit people through side quests so you can use them in the tournament. I'm really glad I found Kakashi and Yamato for the first tournament. I thought I was going to be stuck with Iruka and Konohamaru at some point. Another thing you can do in this mode is fight people's network clones, characters they've built with specific stats and playstyles, but since this game came out in 2014, I was fighting fully maxed out characters without having any kind of buffs myself.
I can't fucking compete! I just can't fucking compete!
So it went about as well as you can imagine. After beating one tournament, you unlock the next rank, and you get access to more areas on the map and more characters to add to your team. It's a fine mode, I guess, it's a fun concept and adds more substance than Generations had, but the orb battles get really boring after a while. But after beating your first tournament, you unlock another storyline, Mecha Naruto. In this storyline, you play as Naruto looking for teammates for another upcoming tournament. He decides to team up with Hinata, and they find their third in the form of Mecha Naruto, a robot they found under some rubble on the beach. It turns out that Mecha Naruto has amnesia and needs the other half of the Mental Stone to restore his memories. And it just so happens that the Mental Stone is being offered as the prize for winning the tournament. Isn't that convenient? I have a few notes on this story setup. First of all, nobody knows what the stone is apart from Naruto, Hinata, and Big Weld. Why would they find a random ass rock and decide to offer it as the big prize? This feels like it was written by a child. Secondly, Mental Stone is the worst name for a MacGuffin I've ever heard. It sounds like an item in Pokemon that turns Eevee into Crackheadion. And finally, Mecha Naruto's just really rude.
Like I've been trying to say, you're the one that's copying me!
Your name should be Naruto, you idiot.
You go through the same tournament mode as before, only this time the difficulty is slightly higher, so you get targeted by all 3 opponents at once. I've played enough Apex to recognise third-party rat strats when I see them. While preparing for the next round, Ginyu Force shenanigans occur, and Naruto and Mecha Naruto switch bodies. Naruto gets a perspective on how Big Weld feels because he's ostracised for being a monstrosity. They meet in the finals, and Naruto talk no jutsus his way into getting his body back and wins the tournament. Upon giving Mecha Naruto the Mental Stone, he goes Goblin mode, and he unleashes his Tail Beast equivalent of a Mad Cat's Xbox controller. Mecha Naruto causes damage to all of the surrounding villages, and everyone wants him dead. So Naruto goes off on his own to try and save the ninja equivalent of an Amazon Alexa. So, Naruto's friend leaves the village, commits acts of terrorism, everyone wants to kill him, Naruto tries to find a way to save his friend. Where have I heard that before? Eventually they go into Mecha Naruto's mind and fight the Mecha Ninetales Gundam, and Mecha Naruto's self-destruct sequence is activated. Naruto promises to save Mecha Naruto. But it's okay, Mecha Naruto was backed up to the cloud and they build him a new body. The end. I did some more research on Mecha Naruto and it turns out there was a filler arc where he was made by Orochimaru to capture Naruto. Kinda neat, I guess. A pretty mediocre storyline in the end, but it's still better than the story mode from Generations. And now onto the biggest selling point of this game, Ninja Escapades. This mode presents you with 3 original stories that were overseen by Masashi Kishimoto himself, these being the creation of the Akatsuki, the 2 Uchiha, and the Far Reaches of Hope. All these storylines are told through animated cutscenes produced by Studio Pierrot, and they're easily the best part of the entire game. The creation of the Akatsuki is pretty self-explanatory. It shows the creation of the Akatsuki after Obito recruits Nagato and Konan. It's pretty cool to see each member be recruited, and a lot of characters have unique designs from before they joined the team. The 2 Uchiha is about the events that led to Itachi murdering his entire clan. It's really cool that we learn more about Shisui, how Itachi awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, and we see Shisui Susanoo for the first time.
Ho ho ho.
Green Giant.
And finally, the most underwhelming of these is the Far Reaches of Hope, which is just a cutscene about Team Minato preparing for their mission at Kanabi Bridge, and then it cuts to the 4th Ninja War. There aren't actually any fights in this storyline, so it just feels like a teaser for the next game. But overall, I think Revolution does have enough content to justify existing. Fair enough, the tournament mode gets monotonous after a while, and the Mecha Naruto storyline is one of the dumbest things I've ever played through. But the revamped combat system, Team Ultimate Jutsus, and the Ninja Escapades really pull their weight in making this game an enjoyable experience. 7 out of 10. After recent trailers, I'm looking forward to Connections more than I was when it was first announced. I think it has a chance to be the best Storm game in the entire series. It has a ton of content available to adapt since Boruto's been out for a while, and it's been 6 years since Storm 4 got its last DLC expansion. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I really enjoy making these videos that look into a game or two, and I have more planned. I've given some of the stuff I've looked at a score out of 10, but I haven't really been doing it consistently, so I thought I'd do it retroactively now. Starting with the first thing I looked at, Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2. It's an 8 out of 10. It's my favourite Dragon Ball game, so there's some nostalgia going into this, but I think it's a great time for any Dragon Ball fan. But there are definitely improvements that could be made. First of all, adding a story mode. Deep Rock Galactic. Another 8. With 4 different dwarves to choose from and a ton of different mission structures, it's pretty hard to get bored, especially when you're playing with friends online. Crash Bandicoot The Wrath of Cortex. Yeah, this is a 4. It controls well and the music's great, but the oversaturation of vehicle levels and bad implementations of elements from the PS1 games bring it down majorly. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I actually gave this a score of 7 when I first reviewed it, and I think that holds up. Ben 10 Protector of Earth. 3 out of 10. It's a repetitive beat-em-up sandwich between janky platforming, laughable puzzles, and the fact that you can only transform into 5 aliens. Persona 5 Royal. 10 out of 10. It's brilliant, go play it. TMNT. I gave this a 5 when I first reviewed it. The turtles are great, but the story is dragged down by boring villains and a disappointing structure. Recall. 3 out of 10. I'm never getting those 12 hours of my life back, and I'm still mad about it. Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit. 5 out of 10. It had so much potential, but the lack of content in terms of a story mode and a roster, along with the awful drama pieces mechanic, made this one tough to get through at times. The Persona 5 manga. This is an 8. It's faithful to the story of the game, and the side stories are a great read if you've already played the game. The only downside is the release schedule of the main Persona 5 manga and the lack of interactions with cool side characters. One Piece World Seeker. 4 out of 10. It's 12 hours of running around as Luffy, boring combat, fetch quest, and a pretty empty world. And I already gave Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions a 7 in its dedicated video. Sorry videos are taking so long, I want to make them as good as I can, and sometimes that takes a lot of time. But I'm trying to get content out at least every month. Thanks for sticking around.